You know the rules. This is straight trucker talk, okay? And this is, of course, my opinion. And I don't know all details. I read a bunch of articles wanting to get an idea exactly what happened before I opened my mouth and stick my foot in her, because I know my foot's pretty big. So is my mouth. Rogel Arcrilio Marderos from Cuba. In 2019, he was coming down a mountain. He's 23-year-old Cuban. His brakes failed. He ran off onto their shoulder, which there was a truck. I guess cars had stopped. So he was hauling ass because his brakes failed. Now let's laugh at that for a second. His brakes failed. What a freaking excuse, right? How does your brakes fail on a semi? I mean, it's nearly impossible. I mean, you could be up to 80,000 pounds and you're going down a hill. It's a 55-mile-an-hour zone. One guy says he was going 85. So yeah, buddy, he was hauling ass, to be honest with you. Now, everything that I tell you is, because I mean, he killed 4 people and injured a whole lot of other people, and a lot of stuff was messed up. I'm not arguing the part, and it's a shame. Even if it was a dog that got killed, but 4 people got killed, I mean, to me, that's huge loss. I know as a guy who lost one son, there's 4 families group out there that are grieving the loss of their thing, and they're looking at this guy saying, this 23-year-old asshole killed my kids. I understand how that feels to lose a child. But, and I'm not defending what he did. Not at all. That's not the purpose of my video. The purpose of my video is to bring some attention to a few things. The first thing is, you hired a 23-year-old kid to run in the mountains. I made a video before about this, about how Biden wants to empower 18-year-old kids to drive semi because there's so many drivers missing. Phil. So we should lower the trucker's age to 18 to where 18-year-olds can drive the trucks locally. Which means if you live in Denver, Colorado, at 18 years old, you could drive a semi. If this was to go through, is what I'm saying. So you have an 18-year-old kid driving an 80,000-pound trucks up and down the mountains. Now this guy, Rogel, was 23. Now I'm not sure you know I'm going to just tell you the laws right now. I'm pretty sure the law is like this. If you're 23 years old, you can get a CDL and drive interstate. Which means I can haul and drive loads from state to state. All 52 states or whatever, if I have a CDL. Now what Biden was wanting to do is he wanted to lower the age down to 18 so that 18s can drive intrastate, which means that they would be able to drive, which means that at 18 years old you can drive only in the state you're in, that your license is for. So if you're 18 years old and you live in Colorado, you would be able to drive a semi in the mountains. Okay? So anyway, Rogel is 23 years old, and in 2019, he had that massive accident. His brakes failed. I know it's a lie, right? The only problem with this is that I'm a trucker. I drive intra-state and interstate. I've drove in Colorado. I've drove everywhere. The one thing I have learned is that an 80,000 pound truck rolls real good. It does. When I get my truck to 55 miles an hour, I take my foot off the accelerator and it will roll a far way. You would think at that weight it'll slow down real good and stop. It'll roll. And now I'm talking in Illinois on flat highway. It'll roll pretty good. It'll roll quite a, I don't know the distance because I've never really tried to measure it, but it'll roll a long way. Now, when you're coming into Kankakee, Illinois, there's a little bit of thing that comes up, and then the highway goes down like this. It's not very long. It's not very long at all. It's not like the mountains on 70 in Colorado. But I do know this, that when I hit that, I gain speed. Now here's something to think about. Most trucks, now read my lips, most trucks are governed to a certain speed, a certain maximum speed. In the case of my truck right now, since I just got a new ECM, it's back to factory defaults and it's 69.5 miles an hour. That means I can stand on the accelerator forever. And I'll do 69 miles an hour. Now, when I pop over a ridge, like coming into Kankakee, I'll hit 71, 72. I love it. Sometimes. But I always turn my Jake brake on, which is an engine brake. And what that does is when the engine brake goes on, it puts exhaust gases on the pistons and it slows the engine down, which slows the truck down. So when my truck hits 72 miles an hour or 73, depends if I have my cruise set at 70, my truck will do 69, and when I catch a little downhill, and as soon as it hits 73 miles an hour, the Jake kicks in. And you could hear it. I know you've heard trucks do that. It's like, so it does that, and the engine starts powering down, and it'll slow my truck back down to my 69 miles an hour, or probably down to 68, and then the cruise control kicks back in, and I get back up to my 69, and it holds it there. All good. And every time I come into a rest area, I put the brakes on, I get in there and I check my brakes, and normally my brake shoes are not too hot. So just a little something about that. Your brake drums are round. Inside there you have two shoes they fit inside the drums, and they're similar to this. I'll put up a real diagram in a minute. And when you step on the brakes, there's a cam at the top. It's an S cam. That S cam turns and pushes the brakes out like this. But the S cam is only so big, and the shoes only come out so far. So it is done with air pressure. So when that S cam is turning, out comes the brakes, goes against those drums, and the brake shoes are real thick. They're like half-inch more or more thick. So you get all that air pressure pushing out on 18 wheels, so you stop real fast. But what happens even in a car, from the weight and your brakes trying to stop your vehicle, because remember, you got the law of motion, and the weight is pushing you as you're moving. So then the shoes come out, and that drum is spinning, and it's made of metal. It starts creating a lot of heat. So once that heat really gets going good, think about metal. Metal gets bigger. Now that S-cam is only so big, so those shoes only come out so far. So as that drum gets hot, it swells. So now if your shoes are pretty thick, like new, it would have to really get hot in order for it to get even harder, but it will, especially with a heavy load. I know this is a fact. So what happens is when you got a heavy load and you're in Chicago on the highway and you're stop and go, have you ever heard a truck where you hear his brakes squealing or you see smoke coming off his shoes? Because he's got a fairly heavy load, not an overweight load, a heavy load. And from constantly stopping and going and stopping, those drum is heating up because they don't cool down in 2 seconds. It's metal. So they're squealing because those brakes, they're not holding too good no more. And I've had that happen to me. And it scared me a little bit because now my stopping time is not too good. It's scary. But that's in the city. So let's go back to Colorado. Colorado has mountains. Some pretty steep mountains. So here's the dilemma that I have a problem with. The kid says brake failure. So what should happen when his brakes fail? His emergency brake will kick on. Yeah, that's it. Only one problem. A truck's emergency brakes are a spring that pushes the shoes out. The same as the air pressure, except for not as great. So like if I'm going down the highway and I pull my emergency brake out, what that does is there's a service line that goes to the trailer. It takes the air off that, and when the maxi pads in the back don't see air pressure, they panic and say, let the spring go. And the springs push the shoes out against the drums. Now going down a hill, if you was to do that, I really doubted if it even slowed the truck down for 1 second. Because the spring power is nowhere near what that air pressure, 110 pounds of air pressure is, pushing that S-cam and pushing those shoes out. So what the brake failure is not really the brake failure, it's the drum's too big. And now the shoes can't go out far enough. It happens on a heavy load going down a mountain. So why don't you just gear down? Put it in lower gear. One problem. When I'm doing 70 miles an hour in my Freightliner, my RPMs are somewhere around 1,500. Now, if I allow my truck to go 75 miles an hour on that downhill, my RPMs will be even higher. So, at 75 miles an hour going down a hill with my truck, if I try to grab a lower gear, it ain't gonna happen. You cannot pull my truck out of gear, out of 10th gear, and pull it into 9th gear to slow me down. Not possible. The transmission will not let you do that. You could hold that clutch in all day long, and I don't think you'll get it in gear like that. You'll grind the living crap out of it, but you won't. And even if I did, and I'm at 75 miles an hour, and I did get it in 9th gear is about 55, not quite 55 miles an hour. 9th gear, I can get about 53 or 54 miles an hour. So at 75 miles an hour, if I did get that in 9th gear, and I did let the clutch out, if I can even do that, which I don't really think I could, and I let that clutch out and blow the motor completely out of that truck. Oh, damn, he just lost a freaking $30,000 engine. No. You just lost your life, because now you have no chance of braking whatsoever. Your motor's shut off. Your air pressure is not going to build up anymore, and you're going down the freaking hill. Gaining speed because 80,000 pounds is pushing you down that hill. Not pulling you down that hill, it is pushing you down that hill. Now, I don't know if you've ever felt your car push you a little bit when you're going down hills like that. The car will push you some. 80,000 pounds will push you a real lot. I've had my truck up to over 85 miles an hour in New York. Not intentionally. My Jake brake wasn't working. So what did I do? I slammed the freaking brakes on until I got almost to 30 miles an hour and changed the gear. My brake shoes were stinking so bad and they were hot. And then as soon as I got myself in a clear area, I stopped and let it cool down. It took more than a half hour. So this young kid with no trucking experience got in a situation that he couldn't handle because he didn't have the experience. And I don't even know the kid, but I know at 23 years old, you don't know shit about driving in the mountains with a truck or what to do in a situation to where you're coming down a hill and they're stopped in front of you or there's snow. And I'm not trying to defend the kid. I'm trying to defend the fact that that kid that's driving that truck is not really he's partially the problem. The owner of that truck is really the guy who put a 23-year-old kid behind that 80,000 pound truck. So is it possible that his brakes failed? I say guarantee it did. Did he have a Jake brake? I have no clue if he did or not. Not every single truck has a Jake brake. That's a question for the guy who owns that truck. But even with a Jake brake on my truck with 40,000 pounds in a trailer going down the hills in Kentucky, which are not like Colorado, I can get up to 75 in seconds. Now my Jake brake will slow me down sometimes, but there's sometimes where the grade is 5 or 6, ain't happening. And there's a few times to where I got into the downhill and I seen the sign and I see where it says go to a lower gear, but I'm listening on the radio, and I'm experienced, and sometimes I just, I'll be fine. My Jake brake will hold me. And then it starts to where my speed is getting over 75, I don't allow that. So then I brake, and I brake hard, because you can't stand on the brakes. If you stand on the brakes, they're going to overheat, and you're going to have the same issue as he did. You can't. There's no solution. There's no parachute to pull. You can't shut the engine off and slow down. That ain't going to happen. And if your drums are swallowed, your brakes ain't going to happen. If you have a Jake brake on a steep mountain will not stop you. It will not even slow you down if you've got a heavy load and it's a pretty long downgrade. I guarantee that. And if you're a trucker, you know I'm telling you 100% truth. So is the boy guilty? He's guilty of an accident. Yes, he is. And they say he had a chance to get off on that ramp. That runaway ramp, I seen him. You see him. He might not have felt like he was in trouble at that point. He was probably running fast at that point and he figured, damn, and he might have been trying to slow down. And once he passed that, traffic will stop. Too late. You will not stop a truck going down a hill with a load and your brakes are hot with or without a Jake brake. And I got a 2-stage Jake brake on mine, and my Jake works good. It won't happen. So is the boy guilty of an accident? Yes, 100% he is. Is the guy responsible with that boy? No, I think he's not. I think he's partially to blame, but I think the owner that put him in that truck is the real culprit here. Does he deserve to go to jail? I don't know. Not for 110 years. 110 years, if when he was going down that hill, he had brakes and decided, I'm killing everybody at the bottom of this hill. I see them all stop, and I'm killing them. Death penalty then. Not even 110 years. Stick the needle in his arm. Let him go. But he had an accident. He had brake failure. The boy said he did. Why would he not? What is it? What other excuse is there other than I can't stop my freaking truck. Could have jumped out. He said in a testimony that just before he ran into the vehicles, he closed his eyes. He knew it was over. Why would anybody want to die like that? If I was running down a hill and I seen the traffic at the bottom of the hill was stopped and I know I'm not stopping my truck, I don't think I would have the balls to drive off this shoulder and kill just myself. What else is my choice? I would try to run between anything I could to avoid that. But if you're at 85 miles an hour, and I don't doubt that, on those hills out in Colorado, yeah, I'm sure you can get 85 easy. And I mean, it won't take you an hour to get, it'll take you an hour to get to 70 miles an hour with a load. But going down a hill, when you pop over a ridge and you start down that grade, you're at 85 before you can say, shit, I'm at 85. I've had it happen, I'm telling you, it does. And not with a real heavy load either, just a load. So the whole problem with this, and the reason of my video, is that boy don't deserve 110 years for what he did. He didn't do it to kill them. That would be a whole different thing. Then I'm standing behind you, I'll help you. But that kid, he's innocent of that. He is in an accident. But now it's not the kid. Let's forget about the kid. Let's forget about all that stuff. Here's the problem. Colorado has a law. If you kill somebody in a truck, you get prison time. What does that mean? That means be careful in Colorado. Well, me and right now over 3.5 million truckers are saying, no, screw Colorado. My truck's not going there. Because I'm not going to take a chance on somebody cutting in front of me and I kill him and then I get sent to prison. Because that's basically what this is. He got in a situation he couldn't get out of, and they gave him 110 years. He's going to be old when he gets out. Plus, nobody will hire him. So, my truck at this minute, and I don't give two craps how much money you say, take this load to Denver and I'll pay you $20,000, I'm going to say, screw you. Because I'm not going to take a chance on getting over there and have some idiot in a freaking car brake check me, I hit him and he dies, and then I go to prison. Colorado better change their laws, because they're about to waken up with I know right now, there's 3.5 million guys who signed a petition. And they're all saying, I was on TikTok and I posted too on TikTok saying my truck's not going to Colorado ever. So I hope that the truckers stick together with this, because it is an unfair law, again, against truckers. He did not kill them. They got killed. But he didn't do it maliciously. If he did, then yes, he deserves every minute of it. Or I feel the death penalty. But a trucker, if a car cuts in front of you and brake checks you, I have that almost every single day when I'm on the road. Seriously. Almost every single day on the road, I get at least one brake check from a car. That he was pissed off because I was in the left lane holding up traffic because I'm trying to pass a truck on my right who's running 67 and I can only do 69. So think about that, how long it takes me to get around him. So then finally when I do get over past him and I get back into the right hand lane, that car comes flying around me and the first thing he does is cuts in front of me and jams his fucking brakes on. Excuse my swearing. Seriously, brake check. And if I was in Colorado and he brake checked and I ran in the back of him and he spun out and got killed, I would go to prison. Screw Colorado. I hope Colorado don't get no freight from anybody. I hope the truckers do stick together. Because in this situation, truckers, we need to stick together on this because it's wrong what they're doing. It's a sad thing that 4 people lost their lives. And maybe somewhere down the road, they'll do something to increase a truck stopping with that weight, with that kind of, I don't know what the answer is here. Because even disc brakes, grabbing like this on a disc still gets hot. It's friction. You got a lot of weight and it's friction. You have a lot of weight pushing you down those mountains. The answer is take all the mountains out of Colorado and make it all flat ground, and then that ends that. Kind of. But you're still going to have a situation where if cars automatically stop real fast like that, that truck's still going to run into you. And if you hit somebody and the car spins sideways and he rolls over and dies, you go to prison. My truck's not going to Colorado. But anyway, this is what I wanted you to know, because there's a lot of people that don't know that stuff, and it's important.